Giddy as damning as that one, but it is interesting, and it shows. I think that there's this ongoing misunderstanding pushed by Democratic politicians and Democratic sympathetic media that, oh, the Republicans are these big, bad, awful racists, but the Democrats really care about the plights of non-white people in the U.S. and abroad. And I think that this email shows that that's not true, and also shows just how, I don't know, how elitist and disconnected these people really are, these people at the highest echelons of power in DC. So this, let me scroll up. This email is from Orca100 at upseamail.nl. That is John Podesta's email. I wish I would have pulled something up to prove that to anyone watching, but you can look it up. Orca100 is John Podesta's email. So again, John Podesta was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager in 2016. He's a pretty powerful and influential person in DC, especially in the DNC. And this is where his email gets really interesting. He says, "What makes for a successful immigration? It's no brain surgery, but the media have long failed to provide a clear, credible answer. They are unable to come up with an answer, or don't like the answer that's staring them in the face. The main reason behind successful immigration should be painfully obvious to even the most dim-witted of observers. Some groups of people are almost always highly successful given only half a chance. Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, and Chinese people, for example. While others, Muslims, blacks, and Roma, for instance, fare badly almost irrespective of circumstances. The biggest group of humanity can be found somewhere between those two extremes, the perennial overachievers and the professional never-do-wells." So this is the person who was in charge of Hillary Clinton's campaign, and he literally is calling Muslims, black, and Roma, for instance. So not just those groups, others too. He's saying that they fare badly almost irrespective of circumstances and are professional never-do-wells.
So this explains why Hillary didn't win in 2016. Oh my God. This is so interesting. Like you said, it just shows how is he talking about immigration anywhere to the United States? Like what, I guess to put it into context, do you know what sort of, what's he trying to say with this paragraph here?
To be honest, I haven't read the full email in a while. I just pulled this up and went right to the money shot.
I saw him making fun of Germans, which I'm not really sure where he's getting at there.
Oh, okay. So up here, he's actually, it's so funny too. Like all this stuff, like he's calling the German people brainwashables, which doesn't offend me, but that's the sort of stuff where, like, if you say something like that on Twitter, people will say, "Oh, what are you, a Trump supporter?" Or "You must watch Alex Jones." And this is John fucking Podesta.
Yeah,
so
that's yeah.
But yeah,
also, sorry.
No, yeah. So there was a migration crisis at this time because the West had overthrown Libya, and Libya had acted as, the way that Assange put it in an interview was that if Africa was a wine bottle, then Libya was the cork. So all of these, all the different types of instability that different countries in Africa, which is a huge continent, and also, a lot of countries there, unfortunately, are quite impoverished. So there tends to be a lot of, they're impoverished, and they have a terrible colonial history that they're still trying to shake off. So there tends to be a lot of political instability. There tends to be a lot of refugees, and Libya was able to keep refugees from making it to Europe en masse. But then the West overthrew Gaddafi in Libya and left it in shambles as a failed state. So they started having tons of refugees in Europe, and that got worse too as the conflict in Syria escalated. So that's kind of the backdrop of this email. And right here, he starts talking about how bad the German immigration problem is. And he says, among the multitudes of mainstream media falsehoods rammed down the throats of German brainwashables. I still can't believe he said that first sentence even. The German media are arguing that the many millions of new arrivals will somehow replenish Germany's graying and shrinking labor force. Never mind that all available figures show that the vast majority of working age Muslims in Euro-weenie land are not only jobless, but also structurally unemployable, completely lacking in all marketable skills. The frightening future of German schmeducation can be best seen in a clip giving an impression of your average Mickey Mouse vocational school, which aims to turn Muslim kids into semi-employables at the lowest possible level and fails miserably across the board. Go to 30 seconds to give you an idea. A mind-mashing 63% of preschool immigrant children, often fourth generation, in Berlin's Kreuzberg district speak little or no German and are theoretically inadmissible to an elementary school, disclosed Professor of Pedagogy Ali Ukar in Time magazine. So what he's doing, the backdrop of this really damning paragraph that we read first, he's basically saying the key to successful immigration is to let in all of these people, the perennial overachievers, such as in his words, not mine, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, and Chinese people, and to exclude these other people, which he characterizes as professional never-do-wells. And this man, this isn't some like fringe weirdo in DC. Like, this man was the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Like, the person who's right next to a potential president of the United States, helping her get elected, managing her effort to get elected. And this is how he talks. This is how he thinks.
Yeah, at worst, it's childish talking, sorry.
That's my favorite part about it.
At best, it's childish talking. At worst, it's flat out racist, obviously. But yeah, he's Euro weenie land schmeducation. Calling them brainwashables is extremely racist, just because I'm assuming that's kind of a World War II callback.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if he actually, assuming that this man is an extremely intelligent man. Saying all these things is disturbing in the least, and it's not to pivot too much away from Assange, because obviously that's the point of the whole thing. But this shows you how disconnected, I think you mentioned this, how disconnected the elite are from the rest of the people. And if this doesn't show you how, like, this man was very close to Hillary Clinton, so if we kind of, it's not safe to assume that she was similar. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and jump to that conclusion.
I think it's safe to assume that, honestly, because if you don't think like this, why would you make this person your fucking campaign manager? It's one thing to be like, oh yeah, we'll go out to dinner with John. Yeah, no, I mean, he says some crazy shit sometimes, but like, he's nice after a few drinks. But to literally be like, no, that's the guy. He's going to get me in the White House.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go ahead and say that Hillary Clinton is somewhat similar. I'll reiterate that at best she's immature, and at worst she's flat out a tyrant and racist. Like, there's nothing about this that says I'm a good person. and this man was trying to get her into the White House. Like, so she would have acted in the same way. And if you hear, if you've heard reports from like Secret Service and people who are very close to the Clinton family, this is how she did act. So people who say that Donald Trump is immature and rude and racist, like maybe try reading some of these emails that were leaked, because this is yeah, this is bad. I mean, this is someone who is very high up in the governmental structure, and that shouldn't be. There, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think it's interesting that, if you look at the alarming similarities between Hillary Clinton and Trump and the alarming similarities between Biden and Trump, it it seems like no matter what, you're going to get a tyrannical narcissist. At least
Mhm.
that's what the last two elections have been.
Yeah, and the difference is with Hillary Clinton, she would be a tyrannical narcissist, um, who nobody knows is a tyrannical narcissist, because
Everybody knows, but nobody says it. At least in
everybody knows and nobody says anything. But and she also doesn't tweet it out for the whole world to
oh,
see.
right.
Is kind of what I'm getting at. Is that, she's she is that way, but you have to pay close attention to see it and to get the glimpses of it. Whereas Trump just like tweets out rude shit all the time, and it's like it's all in your face. Um, but yeah, so and Joe Biden's the same way. I mean, we can
Yeah,
see with Biden B side that we did a couple weeks ago that this man, he says these things that he thinks are, I don't know, funny, like this.
I just remember. I wrote the crack house legislation. He's like
It,
bragging about that.
yeah, it's like it's almost like he thinks he's being funny or something.
Yeah,
Like he makes these jokes, and obviously, um, the email that we just read by blanking on the guy's name,
Podesta.
Podestan. He obviously thinks he's being funny, calling them Euro weenies and all that stuff. Like this, like is that his some sort of weird humor? And then he's just, and obviously I pointed out he's just being flat out racist, calling black people and um, um, Middle Eastern people never do well. So like, it's just insane.
One thing that's really interesting to me is that the one of my most somebody that for years I considered to be one of my most thoughtful and well-read and interesting friends, who I think I don't know. I don't want to mischaracterize his perspective, but I think at one point he called himself like an anarcho-communist or an anarcho-socialist or something like that. When he saw me share this email on Facebook, he texted me privately about it, and yeah, it's also interesting to me that he didn't say this out there for everyone to see, but he texted me privately about it and said that this man is clearly somebody who's very careful with his words. And it says a lot that instead that he said professional never do wells instead of professional ne'er do wells, which is the more common way to say it. And he said, I don't think this is a trivial distinction. I think saying professional never do wells implies that their failure is due to their circumstances, not due to them. And I'm like, he said, irrespective of circumstances. Like, also, like, we're split. Like
We're splitting hairs here. I mean,
what had really happened is this particular friend of mine had gone into the anti-Trump like insanity of just like wanting to defend the Democrats at all costs. It seemed like, and that I don't know. I didn't. That was really really depressing to me. I didn't really know how to respond to it.